is investigating what may become one of the world's largest ransomware attacks. Security experts say a Russian-based cyber criminal group is demanding a $70 million ransom.
Cybercrime attacks have been happening ever since people have had access to the internet. It's been here for a very long time, and I would dare to say that it's here to stay.
I mean, if you just look at the news every day, there's another company that's been ransomware. There's another company that's had a data breach. You know, it's not going away. It's only getting worse.
Homeland Security warned in this recent intelligence report that ransomware attacks are likely to increase in the near and long term.
There's different reasons for an attack. It could be money. It could be politically motivated.
They're going for that low-hanging fruit. They're going for those people that don't take any kind of security precautions.
The attack affects hundreds of businesses, including financial service firms and a European grocery chain.
The cybercriminal will look for those openings or easy ways to get in so that they can gain a foothold into the network.
Really, the whole purpose is to get into that organization's network and exploit vulnerabilities that are found.
If Microsoft and the United States government and the military can't keep people out, and they have budgets that are millions of dollars, no one in the world can stop this from happening.
But they're actually about getting the money is what they want.
Is it only $15,000? Is it only $50,000? Will I get the money back? So it's the fear, it's the unknown.
This is an ongoing battle. It's probably never going to go away.
If you're not prepared for a cybersecurity attack, you're going to be devastated when it happens.
The Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack also demonstrates a growing trend of companies and even government agencies being held hostage by malicious cyber actors.
Here's a startling fact. The costs of cybercrime in 2021 exceeded $8 trillion, and by 2025 will be nearly $15 trillion. If you were to think about that in terms of economies, that would make cybercrime the third largest economy in the world after the United States and China. And if that doesn't give you an idea of how much this is blowing up and what an opportunity it is for our adversaries to make money by taking advantage of our business systems, I don't know what else is.
The past years, there have been many breaches. I mean, when you think back about there was a major breach with Chase. There was another major breach with Home Depot, Target, and the list goes on and on.
There are statistics out there that say 50% of companies that lose all of their data in a catastrophic event go bankrupt, never reopen their doors, and something like another 40% go bankrupt within the first year. But at some point, a true attack or a premeditated attack against your company is definitely going to have a human element. Someone is going to mastermind the attack against your company.
It really disheartens me to think that there are people out there that work their entire lives. They've done all of the right things. They've built their businesses, and in a matter of moments, a person with malintent can come in to their network and they can extract information, extract data, or they can get into bank accounts and they eventually take money. I absolutely love what I do. I love helping people. I've found that carries across multiple industries, and I happen to be in the IT industry.
I run the Cyber Task Force here in Dallas, and throughout the country we have more than 800 cyber-trained agents, and we are really putting forward the resources to be able to respond to the threat.
How have you seen cybersecurity change over the years?
I would say that they've moved into more sophisticated types of attacks, and where the attacks of today, that no one is really immune from those attacks, whether it's a small, medium, or large-sized organization. There are active state-sponsored threats and active financially motivated or criminal threats.
They absolutely can be caught. However, they have some very interesting techniques that they use for not getting caught.
Think about this. You're a cyber criminal, you want to steal someone's data. So you can write a piece of malware and you can test it against all those antiviruses. And you'd hope that it's not going to get detected.
So I've been doing IT security for 26 years. What I like to see with a client, not so much that they understand all the risks that are out there, but they understand a little bit about what they don't know in order to bring somebody in, like in the technology space, bring us to the table to help them with that. Hey Danny, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Renee.
I enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you.
What would you say is our greatest challenge that we have in cybersecurity facing us today?
It's failing to identify the risk is the biggest challenge. If you're a small business and you don't realize how serious this is, and then you're not willing to take the steps, that's putting you at more exposure than you can take.
My real passion, the reason I do what I do, is because I believe that we as IT service providers have to deliver what the customer truly wants. And when we talk about cybersecurity, we do it through the lens of what it is they're trying to achieve in their business. You have a choice every time you're deciding how to protect your business from the threat of cyber attacks and cybercrime, and depending upon the systems that you have inside of your network will determine whether or not you have just a minor inconvenience or a very bad day.
You know, they need to think about, what would my business be like if someone took away all my computers tomorrow? You know, if they were just gone, what would that mean for my business? Because that's the stakes you're playing. That's table stakes. That's the game you're playing.
I think the best way to really understand how a cyber attack really takes place is through something called the cyber kill chain. And there's 7 steps to this actual process.
The first step that we see as far as phases go would be the reconnaissance discovery phase. And that's where they identify their victims and they plan the attack, whether it's going to be phishing, whether it's going to be malware, whether it's going to be a data breach, and ultimately decide how they're going to get that.
Reconnaissance is really about research. So identifying potential targets that are out there and finding vulnerabilities inside of those targets.
They're going to identify you and identify that maybe you have something that they want, and they're going to begin to look at your company.
And they're going to collect as much information as they can to find out where the vulnerabilities are, how they're going to do it, and what they may be able to get from them.
You know, it's gathering data, gathering information, you know, learning, studying, evaluating. You know, the data gathering can happen in different ways. Some of the ways it can happen is simple things would be looking at social media.
We're going to look for employee lists. We're going to go on websites and social medias and look for, does anybody have their email address out?
How do they work? How do they operate? Who's the CEO? You know, can I get in with a spear phishing email, right?
Looking at maybe your LinkedIn page, these are the friends you run with, these are your hobbies, and maybe these are your projects that you're working on inside your company.
They're going to go to Dun & Bradstreet. They're going to find out how much money you make and how much they can get out of you.
Going to the dark web and scraping credentials or any other information that they can find about you, and they're going to build a dossier on your company.
Then you start to establish and create a plan as to what it is you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And then there's a determination made as to when to actually execute, you know, whatever it is that's going to actually be done.
The better they plan, the better they'll end up executing, most likely.
We're officially in the Bronx. From my life experiences, I've become very security conscious, you know, very alert, very protective. You know, I'm passionate about protecting my family and my friends. You know, I hold them very close and dear to my heart. Just thinking about how You know, when you grew up here, one of the things that was important was, you know, when you went somewhere, it was almost like you had to have a plan. You know, if you went shopping, or you went to the movie theater, you went to a party, wherever it was, you were studying the environment, and you were also preparing in some ways, like, where are the exits? If I need to, like, quickly do something to protect myself, protect my friends, protect my family, or if I need to escape quickly. Walking through these streets, I've been jumped, you know, I've been attacked. I've seen people, you know, be shot, you know, I've seen all kinds of things happen here. All those experiences have helped make me who I am today. And have made me very security conscious, very alert, very awake. You know, I can often see a problem way before it happens, and I bring that to the business world.
Hackers hit IT software company Kaseya Friday. They infected some of its customers that rely on the network management system.
Kaseya in 2019 was valued at $2 billion. They got about 40,000 clients, and they're all over the world. So their reach is extensive, and it's used by many IT companies to provide services to their clients, to very efficiently babysit their client systems from any location. They're a top-notch company, you know, excellent products, you know, a lot of very secure products, but even the best stuff has vulnerabilities. And the DIVD, the Dutch Institute of Vulnerability Disclosures, discovered some vulnerabilities in the software, and they had informed Kaseya in April of these existing vulnerabilities. Kaseya quickly went to work on these vulnerabilities. They had resolved some of them, but on July 2nd, there was at least one vulnerability that still existed. It was July 2nd, 2021. It was a Friday, right before the 4th of July weekend. And there was a major breach that happened. The hacker group, Revil, was able to leverage them. One of the vulnerabilities involved an authentication bypass. So they were able to bypass the authentication, gain access to be able to upload files. Then they were able to execute code, and then they were able to use the VSA system to push a fake update down to the MSP clients. It was actually ransomware, and that ransomware led to the encryption of many computers worldwide.
A criminal gang behind the latest massive ransomware attack is demanding $70 million in cryptocurrency. This hack has exploited vulnerabilities in management software made by US IT firm Kaseya.
Kaseya sensed that something was wrong, and they immediately took action. Very quickly after the breach started, they shut down the system and informed their clients to do the same, even for people that didn't have ransomware. That would also cause a disruption. 800 to 1,500 businesses worldwide were compromised. That's the estimated number of businesses affected by this breach. But there was one country where they had like a supermarket chain, and they had about 800 stores, and all these stores were down. And in some of the towns where these stores existed, it was the only store where you could get food from. And so now their systems are down. They can't ring up, they can't ring up transactions, so they can't sell product. By understanding the situation, then you can learn from it. So what are the things we should learn from this? I think we should learn that, and it shows that like even the big powerhouses are not above being compromised. I'm confident that Kaseya, with the reputation that they have, has probably spent a fortune on security, and they still had a compromise. So small business owners who have nowhere near that type of budget are vulnerable. And so we have to continue to be vigilant and look for ways to protect ourselves, And I think that's why it's important to learn as much as we can from these situations.
The second phase of the cyber kill chain is weaponization. So this is really about creating that piece of malware or using some kind of malware that already exists.
Somehow they're going to weaponize something in order to be able to gain access into their target.
They can attempt an initial exploitation, causing you to either give up some credentials or install something on your computer that would give them some initial access.
There's all sorts of different types of attacks. So start with an email campaign. That's one way to do it. There's MFA exhaustion attacks.
Is it going to be a virus link? Is it going to be a Word file, a PDF?
This is the stage where they're going to start writing fake emails or phishing emails that they think might attract you or one of your employees to provide them with information that they need.
Here's a fake Amazon account password reset, or information about a package that was supposedly sent to you that was from Amazon, or maybe it's a banking site that says, here, would you check out these charges? They look like they might be fraudulent. Could you just validate that these are okay? And you click a yes or a no.
They're usually subscribing to some sort of a virus platform so they can send out viruses, or they're sending out phishing emails, or they're sending out spams. They're trying to get information from you. Once they do that, they have an account or a blog or something on the dark web where they can actually post your information for sale.
They can go onto the dark web and look for your domain and look for any credentials that may be for sale. You know, an average credential costs between $2 to $3. And for that amount of money, they can just target as many of those users in your organization as they can.
It's certainly not as sophisticated as you would think it is, but it happens all the time.
With one of our clients recently, they had on their social media that they did a very large construction project. They consequently received a fake phishing email that looked exactly like an invoice from the lumber company that they use. And you say, well, is that circumstantial? Well, if they went on your social media and they just know that you did this big project, and that's the biggest retailer of lumber in town, right? Like, so who do they spoof the email after? So those things that seem innocuous that you put out to promote your business and so forth, over a period of time, those things can be used against you.
The third phase of the cyber kill chain is delivery.
So if they've created a fraudulent website, they're going to launch that website and make it live. If they've templated out some phishing emails, this is the time that they're going to send those emails to you, and then they're going to wait and see whether or not you respond.
I'll get you to click on something. Maybe it's a bad website. Maybe I'm going to take advantage of that you don't have a patch applied to your computer. Maybe I'll take advantage of you on playing on your heartstring. Hey, please contribute to the Red Cross.
It could be a subject line in an email that is really enticing that somebody wants to click on, or really plays into the human emotional aspect of it. Or it just could be an attachment that's in an email. Really, the whole purpose of the delivery method is to get into that organization's network and exploit vulnerabilities that are found.
The end user is usually the weakest link, and the end user is the person who's going to click on that link that they shouldn't, get that spam and answer it like they shouldn't, or get that phishing email and do something, and they're going to actually just let the person walk right into their domain, to their network.
You may open an email attachment, you may open an Office document, or you might have an open port on your firewall that you didn't know about, and they'll get in through there. But essentially they get in, you open something, whether it's a message or an email, and then they've got a foothold. From there, they'll literally catalog your environment, and this can happen in minutes. It's not like it used to be. So they'll catalog your entire environment, they'll figure out where your backups are stored, they'll figure out where your data is stored, and then they'll start extracting data, and then they'll start encrypting data or taking down your system, so you have to pay them to get your data back.
So delivery is really about getting into that network and access to the users that exist behind the network.
We're all familiar with the need to secure our own data, to secure our own networks, but we also have to be conscientious of where do we get our services from, who are we providing services to, and how are we interconnected with our partners and other organizations.
Most of my family is either in the military, firefighters, nurses, serving the community in those roles. And we don't necessarily see cybersecurity that way, but we are literally protecting everyone's data, not just the businesses, but the people who go to those businesses and give up their data. And I love to learn new stuff, and this job never stops creating new opportunities to learn, because new things get created every day that we have to defend against. What we know is on the dark web, medical records are the most expensive records you can buy. At $1,200 around is the average a piece for those records. So on December 4th through the 7th, 2019, Albany-based accounting firm BST was hacked. 25 of BST's clients had their data stolen from BST's servers, which included Community Care Physicians, one of the largest healthcare networks in upstate New York, or New York for that matter. So we're looking at Social Security numbers, names, birth dates, medical insurance billing codes. They knew they had been attacked on December 4th. They didn't know the severity. 3 days later, the files were stolen. BST didn't announce it, CCP didn't announce it. That got out there because the hacker group put it out on the internet and said, we have this. Pay us. That is where all the Capitol stuff is. State Building, Governor's Mansion. So the Maze Group has been around since early 2019. Like any hacker, they love phishing emails. The other thing that they're pretty well known for is setting up fake websites. So those decoy sites and phishing emails is really the way they get into places. The details of how they got into BST weren't released. However, based on the prior actions of the group involved, it's most likely a phishing email that got in. Both entities came out. They had to disclose that information had been stolen because everyone knew it was on the internet. Those people that had their data stolen were offered was free credit monitoring for a year. You know, BST is a giant accounting firm in the Albany area. They handle a lot of clients here. When the attackers got in their system, the problem is that 25 other companies were affected by that. So due to no fault of their own, other than dealing with that accounting firm, their clients had their data stolen. So there was a lawsuit that happened after this information was made public and people were notified. Basically, the answer from the court was none of the people that had their information stolen could prove that that information had been used against them between the time of the hack and the time of the end of the filing in the lawsuit. Well, the performance here was they were able to restore from backup. So they didn't pay a ransom, their systems were back up, and they went back to work and continued to serve people. The damage was done to the people that had their information stolen. Nobody went to jail, nobody got punished. BST doesn't care, the state court doesn't care. So, what are they left with as the victims of the crime? The lesson really is that you can have security in place, you can be following all the rules, but if you deal with companies that aren't, you're still at risk. Any business that you're in contact with, that you share information with, you can potentially affect them, they can potentially affect you.
So if you were to fall victim to a website and put in your credentials, now what they're going to do is try to exploit those credentials.
The fourth phase is called exploitation. So this is where attackers really take advantage of the vulnerabilities that they find in a network, and they move around laterally, jumping from computer to computer so that they can infect as many of them as possible.
So they're going to actually go to your VPN, or they're going to go to your website, and they're going to try to put those credentials in, and they're going to try to see if they can use those to get a foothold into your network.
They basically inventory the network. They look for the data. They look for anything of value that they can gain, and they look for other vulnerabilities that are there.
Maybe I go into one of the network drives. What's there that's interesting? Start just looking around.
Now they can sign into that system. They can get in there and execute code. They can send messages. They can browse the systems, they can see what other systems they can gain access to.
They could look at people's passwords, they could install spyware, they can install ransomware, they can install keyloggers so that they can get your information.
And they're going to spread laterally through the whole network. And as they do this, they're going to be looking for anything that's valuable, anything that they can turn around and sell, anything that they can hold over someone's head, anything that they can profit from. It used to be that gain access to a system and instantly attack that system. And that's not what happens nowadays. Nowadays, they've gotten smart, they get on a system, you won't even know they're there for months.
If they want to continuously collect data, then it can be years that they're on the network.
What we know from the data we have is it's about an average of 260 days from the time an initial penetration into your system happens until the time that a ransomware attack actually takes place.
Back in 2004 is when we started the business, and since then it's just evolved over time, and so is technology, and just keeps evolving and changing. The thing that we find most common among all businesses is the lack of education when it comes to their cybersecurity and comes to them understanding what risks they have. And as we talk to them about the risks that are out there in the world, then we move on to evaluate the technology that they use and how they use that technology.
I come into my office on Thursday, and I don't even have time to sit down and enjoy my coffee until I get a call from my client that says, "Where is our money?" And my heart sank. "What do you mean, what's happened to your money?" "Well, I haven't touched your money. We haven't done anything with it yet. It's barely been funded." As I'm on the phone with them and they are freaking out on the phone with me, I'm opening my system and I'm looking, and sure enough, $450,000 that was funded not even 48 hours ago is gone. My life is ruined, and it's not even 9:02 in the morning.
When the call came in, I remember talking to him, and I remember the panic in his voice, and I remember him just being very worried and concerned about what had happened and what he had just done to his client.
I have a small CPA firm, but I'm entrusted with my client's money. And so ultimately my biggest job is to handle a business process that many small businesses can't do, and that is the finances of their individual firms. I have spent so much time building and entrusting this individual client of mine. What they've done is they've now allowed me to run their entire funds for their company. They were going after a big expansion, and this expansion was about $450,000. And when I'm looking at the information, when I'm logging in to see what happened to the money, it's my credentials that are used.
He didn't know if he was going to be charged for criminal actions, as if he's the one that stole the money. He didn't know what that looked like, what his future looked like.
Something else that can happen is this is going to make local news. Not only is this going to be bad publicity for them, but it's bad publicity for me. And if you look at the domino effect, if it's them, it's going to roll downhill to my other clients. They're going to hear this and think, what is this guy doing with my money as well?
It was a large sum of money that was taken, and due to the severity of this issue, I personally went on site to help assist with this issue. So we started looking online and went through his accounts, and we found out that he had a password that got compromised back in February of the year, so about 2.5 months before I went on site.
And it wasn't like they were compromised that morning. They were compromised months ago. And that was the first terrifying situation, when you realize that you've been being violated for so long and without not even any knowledge whatsoever to the situation. And here's what's really scary. Not only were they going through my emails, but then they were deleting them and then going to the deleting folder and actually deleting those folders permanently, so I couldn't even go in and see that history.
Luckily, they were using Microsoft Office 365, and we were able to recover those emails. And so we were actually able to recover the entire conversations going back and forth with the bank, and we could actually see where they started to communicate with the bank, and they started to send emails back and forth, and they made slight changes. Just a little change in the bank at first, which then gave them more credibility and authority that they could make a bigger change and a bigger change. And eventually they were able to add on a payroll service. And using that payroll service, they were monitoring the account, and as soon as the loan funded on that Tuesday, they used that payroll service and they siphoned all the money out, and it was gone by Thursday.
When I got the information, I was able to stop the transaction by contacting the bank with all the information that I was provided. and within a week I had those funds back.
In a lot of cases that we see and work with companies on, they don't have such good endings. They'll lose the money and it's gone forever. And this was a lucky scenario. We were fast enough. The authorities acted fast enough. Everybody did their job and did a good job of it, and he was very lucky. I remember getting the phone call from him when he found out that the money was going to come back and they were able to stop the money. You could just hear that, the relief in his voice, and that this huge stress, this huge burden was just lifted off of him.
One of the scariest experiences of my life, but also one of the most eye-opening experiences of my life. Everybody dedicated a bunch of time and resources to my screw-up. And because of that, I will be forever thankful for everything that they've done.
This could have been any business owner. This could be happening to you right now, and you not even know it. This needs to be something that you have somebody that's looking after these things, that are going through your logs, they're checking your authentication, they verified that you're set up right, and you've got these security practices in place so that you can take care of these issues before you ever get to this point.
The fifth phase is installation. So this is where they really are planning to or actively deploying a piece of malware onto that target network. These could be things like Trojan horses, backdoors, or remote access tools that are going to give them persistent access.
He wants to leverage the foothold. Now we've got to keep ourselves there so that when the computer reboots, it's still there. When whatever happens, he's still there.
Anytime they make a move, we call it an escalation. So anytime they try to raise their permission level, anytime they try to knock down one more barrier to get behind something else in your network, it's called an escalation. And when they perform an escalation, they're going to let that sit for a while. And they might even let that set like 30 days or something to let your logs clear out. Or they might clandestinely go in and try to delete some of your logs so that you don't even know that they made that escalation.
They move around and attempt to gather from more systems, pull out as much as they can, because they don't want to just pull out one file off of one computer. It's like if I start at your computer, then from once I get into that computer and I pull that data, and then if I can go to your server and then pull the data off of that server, if I can encrypt your desktops and your servers, you're more likely to pay the bad guy.
And the whole purpose of installation, it's designed to take control of the systems and the vulnerabilities that exist inside of that network.
One of the most dangerous times for the bad actor is when they perform that escalation, because that's the most likely time that it's going to trigger your antivirus software or your SIEM software.
If for some reason their next activities are going to trigger an alarm, by that time your security team may notice it, they want to have an additional way in.
They may have come in one door, but then what they will do is they will look for other systems that they can get into, and then they will create multiple doors, and so now they have multiple ways to get back into the system.
So if I broke into your house through your front door, you're going to change your lock on your front door. But I may be going to an upstairs window or a back door in the house and changing that lock or making a key for it, making sure that I have another way to get in if in fact you detect that I'm there.
The secret to our success is how we interact with our customers and how we treat them. People, end users, customers, they're very much aware that technology breaks, and they know that there's nothing that can be done about that. And they may be angry in the moment that something broke, but what they will remember is not that the computer was broke. What they will remember is how you treat them when that computer's broke. I can tell you that when I went to bed that night, the last thing I thought was that I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning with a phone call from one of my technicians saying one of our customers has been attacked with a ransomware virus. But that's exactly what happened. Around 7 o'clock, 7:30 on Saturday morning, Easter weekend, one of our customers at a small branch of a pretty large customer said, we can't get into our computer, and they sent us a screenshot, and we recognized the screenshot right away as being a ransomware type virus.
Around 7 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, I'd received a text of an image of a user's computer screen showing a ransomware message.
Yeah, it was opened up to full screen mode, and you couldn't see anything behind the desktop. It was just the picture. It was really kind of a mocking tone.
Hi company, every byte on any types of your devices was encrypted. Don't try to use backups because it were encrypted too. To get all of your data back, contact us.
Unfortunately, it was a very short period of time after that when they call me back and they say, well, it's getting worse. It appears to have affected several machines, and several different folders have been encrypted, 6 locations across 4 states. The average ransom demand for this particular virus is somewhere in the neighborhood of $125,000. We learned that this virus was not just a simple, if you will, ransomware virus. This was a human-controlled virus. Somehow they had gotten into our network and they had some level of control, and they were spreading the virus on purpose. What we most likely suspect is that it came in through an email. Someone clicked on an email, and we think they installed a keylogger. So this is what we call a true zero-day event. This variation, this particular format of this virus is the first time that it was ever seen. But by the time it breached the server and tried to send out commands to every machine in the network, it kicked in and said no thanks. And so we made the determination that it would probably take too much time to try to clean everything, and there would be no way in a short period of time to verify that everything had been cleaned off and that it was safe to go back to work. So what we decided to do was implement a disaster recovery process. So we basically shifted gears from being a cyber attack to being a catastrophic loss of all data. And then we immediately implemented our disaster recovery plan. We didn't have the luxury of time. Our customer needs to be back to work. Our customer has some retail functions, has some wholesale distribution functions. If they are unable to fulfill those functions, they're losing money.
I don't know what we would have done if we hadn't had the ability to bring in so many people. 2 or 3 people on staff would not have been able to take care of that.
What I really probably feel is just relief, right? That we never really got close to the worst case, right? I don't really feel proud, right? I feel like they paid us to do a job, and we did our job, right? We accomplished what we were supposed to do.
The 6th phase, and this is the one that people hear about a lot, is called Command and Control, or C2.
What you're doing at that point is allowing yourself to command that system and to gain multiple ports of entry to control it.
This is the stage where the bad actor has full control of your network. They can look at any file, they can download any resource, they can read any email.
Some of the more sophisticated cyber criminals are now taking data in smaller amounts so that they don't alert that there's a large amount of data being exfiltrated or copied off of their network.
Maybe I go to a backup vendor, download their backup software, and I start backing up the computer using commercially available backup software and ship it to the bad guy's data site. Antivirus won't pick that up because, hey, it's a known good product.
In some cases, it could be to get in and get out, sometimes, as quickly or as undetected as possible. They may want to come back in later for more, or to do it again.
Now they've got access to that entire environment. They can start poking around and seeing what they can see. They can go through someone's emails, they can go through their bank accounts, they can go through their insurance policies and find out how much their insurance is going to pay. All the while this is going on, whoever they're attacking, that target, usually has no idea that anything's happening at this point.
This is where that malware that exists inside the network is communicating with some kind of a system that's off-site, and it's designed to send and receive communication back and forth to execute things. This is oftentimes used in terms of ransomware, because command and control becomes a huge aspect of being able to actively and control ransomware that exists in one of these target networks. The seventh and final phase of the cyber kill chain method are what's considered the actions or objectives of the adversary. This is really the goal that they've had in mind the entire time.
And then someone comes into work in the morning and tries to turn on their systems and nothing turns on. And they generally get a message that we're such and such hacker group. We put ransomware on your machines. You have 24 or 48 hours to pay X amount of Bitcoin to this Bitcoin wallet.
They used the ransom in the beginning and just go right for the jugular. But people have gotten smarter and have better backups and do all sorts of other things now, right? So they do end up ransoming. One, we can sell their data. Two, we can exploit them and let them know that we're going to publish your data publicly for you to shame you, basically, right?
And in some cases, they'll even put out a sample of the data to let you know that they have some of your data, but of course, they won't tell you everything that they have, but they will put out a sample of what they have so that you do know that they have some of your legitimate data.
When we first saw ransomware come out, it was $300 per computer is what they were charging to get that ransom and pull it back. And the most recent ones we've seen, they're coming back closer to $15,000 plus per computer, and it just keeps going up and up and up as they find more ways to hold it and force people into it.
And they're really hoping that they've done a good job and you don't have backups, because if you don't have those backups and you're now encrypted, you're either going to pay them or you're going to lose all your data.
It's just not the amount of the ransom, it's the disruption of everything else for that business. And it's also the trust. There's external trust with customers, and there's internal trust with the employees. The employees get scared. Now you're dealing with scared employees that don't know, like, is my data safe? Has my own personal data been compromised? Do I need to be watching over my back now, checking my bank accounts, right? Because now that the organization I work for has been breached. Like, what do I need to be concerned about, right? So it doesn't end well for anybody.
When there's a problem that a customer's had for a week, a month, a year, and being able to come in, analyze that problem, and really being able to come up with a solution that works for them going forward, that's really what motivates me, and I really get excited about. When you've finished that project and it's complete and the customer's happy, that's the win for me.
It was on Sunday, September 11th, and I just happened to be in my car, parked in a parking lot, pulled out my phone, and all of a sudden I see this email. And my first thought was, this is fake, and it seemed like the email knew more than it should know as a spam. And then I couldn't believe, here we are, a small company, is this really happening? These people are really extorting us.
He received an email from an anonymous account that said that they had access to the file server, and that if we didn't make a payment of a particular blackmail ransom payment, that they would post that data on the public internet.
Zach, you gotta look at this extortion email, and it's a Sunday, but you gotta look at the servers and what's going on. And he immediately jumped into action.
At that point, we shut down the servers. We phoned Rick again, let him know what we had found. And I was explaining to him, what we found, and that yes, indeed, that the server was compromised. We explained to them, we needed to dig deeper into this to really find out what data they have and what they could potentially do with it. But that was something that we would continue to work on night or day until we got some answers for them.
I think our servers were shut down for about 2 days. And then we did contact the FBI in Los Angeles. The FBI gave us some guidance and was wanting to help out. But they told us to look at the different factors of how bad could this impact your customers.
The individuals made themselves known as the group of the Dark Overlord from their very first email. They said that we are the Dark Overlord, we are attacking your network, we have all of your data, and they made themselves known. So from there we were able to do some reconnaissance on the Dark Overlord and what they've done in the past, and we were able to look at some previous attempts and attacks that they've done, and we were able to learn from those and help with Westpark.
They continued to contact us and make demands for the ransom, and as as each day went on and each demand came in, they got more and more aggressive. The internet reporters and the newspapers published articles, and so the news was getting out there. We weren't prepared as a management team to deal with this sort of situation. Once again, we thought small companies don't have to deal with these things. I thought, if this goes worst case scenario, this could be the end for a firm that I've worked half of my life to build, and all those employees and their families that would, potentially be out of a job.
We just continued on with our incident response plan. And so we went through the server. We were able to determine that one of the accounts that was compromised happened to have come from a LinkedIn data breach that had happened previously in the year. And we were able to determine that that user account had limited access to their data. And so because of that, we knew that the attacker didn't have access to all the data that they said they have. The FBI's policy is they don't pay for ransomware, but they left that decision up to us if we felt that it was realistic and needed to be done based upon the data that was out there. And once we analyzed the situation and determined that that data didn't really have a lot of confidentiality behind it and didn't have a lot of personal identifiable information, we made that choice to say probably not worth it to pay.
When you're under attack like that, having a knowledgeable firm that's working with you hand in hand, and not just hand in hand, but instantly, all night long, weekends, as long as you're in crisis mode, having a firm that's committed to doing that and has the knowledge base and is able to communicate with authorities properly, I think that's absolutely essential.
Not having a relationship with an IT company, going into something like this where a blackmail attempt is happening, you're really flying blind. The director of the FBI had said there are two types of companies, those that have been hacked, those that will be hacked. It's gonna happen. Whether your company's small, whether your company's big, some sort of cybersecurity event is gonna happen. I would deem the attack itself successful in that they were able to breach the servers and get data. Were they able to monetize on it? No. And I think that's really the biggest thing that attackers are looking to do at this point. If you can't make money on it, why do it?
Yeah, so let me just show you two wanted posters that we have that came from the FBI that's out online. The first one is wanted by the FBI, Mr. Yevgeny Polyanin, wanted in an FBI Dallas investigation that was a joint investigation with FBI Jackson. He's believed to be in Russia. This is a case that was worked by FBI Houston, Mr. Igor Dektyarchuk. And he was previously a student in Russia, and he is wanted for allegedly operating a cyber criminal marketplace that sold thousands of login credentials, PII, and other information.
So I think our FBI officials are doing a wonderful job. They can't go into every cybersecurity case that's out there. However, they're helping, of course, with the critical infrastructure, and they're working with other IT professionals or the IT professionals that are out there to try to get the word out and how to protect ourselves, not only ourselves, but protect other businesses.
We are having success. We do rely upon the cooperation of victims to share information with us, to cooperate with us. Certainly, victims should do everything they can to prevent or minimize any types of cyber incidents, because we can't guarantee that every case will result in a prosecution.
The ratio or the score with the cyber criminals versus law enforcement is that, hands down, law enforcement is they're outnumbered. They're completely outnumbered. First of all, it's going to be reactionary. So there's nothing proactive that you're going to get from, really from like the FBI. But we do want to be proactive and make it as challenging as possible for them to get into the systems. However, there are the IT professionals out there that can help you be more proactive. In regards to what we do and what law enforcement does, we have to be right every time. The cyber criminals have to be right once.
Historically, can you look at these events that have happened and see some common pattern?
Well, so it's normally poor cybersecurity hygiene and a user mistake, because humans are people, they're valuable, they make mistakes. So somebody clicks on something and that's a mistake. They enter their password, but generally it's poor hygiene. They didn't have good controls in place. They didn't have dual factor in place. They didn't have zero trust framework in place, and that's allowed an attacker to get in.
You can't stop all crime, but you can minimize its effects by implementing controls, best practices that would minimize your exposure.
All your systems are now connected to the internet, and there's so many malicious things, malicious people on the internet looking to cause havoc to the business environment that you need an expert.
Camera's got focus. You look good, I look good. Headphones are on. Okay.
My real passion, the reason I do what I do, is because I believe that we as IT service providers have to deliver what the customer truly wants, whatever that may be. I always had an interest in technology. I could not wait to be around as much of the little blinking lights as I possibly could.
So I want to talk about this situation that you and I just went through and what that was like. So I was standing in my office and I got a call from one of my colleagues, and the first thing he said to me is, "Ross, you need to see this right now."
So probably the most important message that I think I could give the public today is to begin by assessing your risk. I think most people really believe that tools are the ultimate solution to protecting their networks from cybercrime. But the fact of the matter is, tools are only 1/3 of the equation.
So we started to investigate, and as it turns out, this state-of-the-art antivirus that was running on this machine had been completely bypassed and was presenting to us as having been uninstalled, having been removed from the machine that it was tasked with protecting. And upon further investigation, we realized that somebody had somehow gotten into this system and been able to deploy this software.
When it comes to properly protecting your business, your family, your home, you have to think about all aspects. This is going to include your technical safeguards, which are your tools, but it also includes administrative safeguards. These are things like policies and procedures, the stuff that you won't do. And last but not least are the physical controls. You put locks on your doors at home, you put security systems in place, and the same sort of thing has to happen in your business.
Security, as big of a focus as it is for me, is not ultimately what I do, and that's why I work with an MSSP such as yourself. So I knew that I had to get you in here and I had to get you looking at what was going on.
So one of the best questions I ever get asked is, what are the first steps that a business can really take to start reducing their risk when it comes to cybercrime? And I love that question because the answer is right in the question. The very first step that any business should take is to assess their risk.
You've got business owners who don't think they have any risk. You've got business owners who are taking steps, but aren't doing enough. And then you got business owners who are taking a lot of steps and doing a lot of things to reduce their risk, but they're just doing the wrong things or spending money in the wrong areas.
You can't start taking the proper steps to reduce your risk until you understand what those risks actually are. And some of the best ways to do this is by conducting a penetration test, by conducting a vulnerability assessment, by conducting an assessment of all of the gaps or weaknesses that exist in your network. When you have that information, then you need to sit down with your leadership and have a focused conversation about how much risk that represents to the business.
Am I willing to risk the 5, 10, 15, 20 years that I've spent on my business every day to have some cyber criminal come in and in one day it's all gone.
So as a CEO, what would be like a first 1-2 concrete steps that somebody in the C-suite should be doing in order to improve their security posture?
If you're a small business, which in many cases most CEOs are, and you don't have a big team of people, the most important thing is find a good partner, find a good IT solution provider, an MSP who can help you and guide you through it, and ask them, what are you doing about Zero Trust? What are you doing about CIS framework? What are you doing about these problems? And ask them the questions. And again, there's nothing wrong with finding someone to audit your IT company.
And that's where you bring in professionals like the other folks that are in this movie project and find out what your risk is. And then from that, go through and identify and say either I can live with that risk and what it might mean, or no, I can't and I need to put a control or some mitigation in place to prevent that from happening.
The first thing I think people need to do is try to get educated, find out what's out there. That next step is take action on those things. You can take small actions on those biggest risks and then find out what your next biggest risk is and take a small action on that.
People click on links they shouldn't. People are responding to spam that they shouldn't be. People do this all the time. So the number one thing, the most important part of security is training your people.
These things don't have to cost a lot of money. It could be simple as using different passwords on different accounts or turning on that multi-factor authentication when it pops up and asks you to turn it on rather than clicking the skip button. You can take these little steps that'll make a big difference in your security.
CEOs think that everything falls under IT. Security should fall under IT, everything should fall under IT. But really, IT and security are two different departments. IT keeps your company running, security keeps your company secure. And helping CEOs understand that really goes a long way.
There's a major lack of education around what's out there, what kind of threats there are out there, and then the resources, right? So what we need to do is have people get trained up, right? There's a ton of training like CEH, there's all sorts of different training opportunities out there, but we need even your regular IT practitioners to start learning cybersecurity because there's just not enough people in the industry. There's just not enough bodies that were manufactured in IT and security to help squash the threat. So one thing about education, right, is getting the word out there, right? And what's best to do that is get a conference together. Let's get everybody together in a single location and actually learn about all these different new and crazy cybersecurity techniques. And then what you do when you do that is you actually create a community.
Good morning and aloha! Aloha! Welcome to the 2023 B-Sides Hawaii Conference. We're back, baby.
Right. Our vision was to create a community around cybersecurity professionals that work together. They can even be competitors that work together, right? And what we're trying to do is actually just rise the tide and raise all boats, right? That's old adage, but it does work. So the more people that we can get to work together that can trust each other, we can actually help protect the community as a whole. Because it doesn't matter if I'm the best one in the island, right? Or islands, or even in the nation. If my neighbor gets attacked, my neighbor can attack me. Right, so what we want to do is actually get everybody the knowledge, so we can actually raise the communities up to help protect ourselves.
This community is everybody, right? It's the customers that we have here. It's the vendors. It's everybody. It's the DoD. Everything comes together to create this community that we live in and we work in.
Speakers at this event, some have spoken at DEF CON, Black Hat. These are the biggest cybersecurity conferences in the country. And out here, we have these speakers here and bringing them to the community as well.
Most organizations that got, successfully compromised, they didn't have the visibility they really needed, right? They didn't have the right kind of tools. They didn't have the right logging.
So if you're a small business and you're not sure about your IT guy, or let's say your MSP per se, you might want to check out the local cybersecurity conference and start talking to those people, even us as practitioners. It's a daily thing. It's daily. You're always looking for what's happening out there. What are the latest threats? How are people getting in? And then again, networking with your community. It's exciting. This is our second event, and the energy around it's amazing. That's the buzz. My energy around it all day has been, it's just been such a outpouring of support and gratitude. I'd say gratitude is probably the biggest thing from today. Just people are so thankful that we did this. So these events are, I think, critical to the community.
Our message is that we need to make sure that people are educated. We want to educate as many people as we can on the risks that are out there. If they know what the risks are that are out there, then they'll know that they need to do something. And if they know that they need to do something, then they can get some expert involved to help them know what that is and how to implement those changes.
I think the value in looking at all these stories is that it gives us an opportunity to assess and evaluate, what's happened. And when we do that, we learn, what mistakes were made, and we learn what needs to be done to make sure they don't happen again or that they don't happen to us.
What could have been done to prevent it? And in each of these cases, there are things that could have been done to prevent, or at least at a minimum, minimize the crime.
I think that we all have lessons we have to learn in life, and I think that you can learn lessons the easy way or the hard way. You can learn lessons by going through these experiences yourself and learning that security is important, or you can learn from these other companies, some big, some small. It doesn't matter the size you are, it matters what you're doing and that you need to put these things in place. Learn these lessons from these other people that have gone through this before you and had to struggle.
Think about the obligations you have. Think about your responsibilities. Think about what you have on those computers. Think about your own self as well as your employees. We want to make sure that we get the word out that there is protection available, because if you were to get ransomware, for example, and you lost your data, your choices are, if there's a backup, great, but if not, you might be tempted to pay that ransom.
Find and engage with a reputable managed services provider who understands something about how cyber criminals think and what they want to accomplish and some of the tools and skills that they possess to accomplish their goals.
There really is no playbook for how to work with a company like us. There's no playbook to understand what great IT looks like. There's no playbook to understand whether you're making the right decisions around cybersecurity and compliance. And so if the business owner doesn't make the right decision with respect to the IT company that they're working with or the IT people that they hire, they can often be doing themselves a huge disservice by not really focusing in the areas that they need to.
Anyone can click set up and install an application, or most people can today. It's what you do with that application that makes it really work and what it can do.
I think that's at the end of the day, is you want to trust but verify what you have, that it's working, and if it's not working, fix it right away.
An appropriate audit of their systems by a third party, not their IT provider. You wouldn't let your children check their own homework. You don't want your internal IT staff telling you that everything is fine. Trust but verify, always.
Cybercrime isn't going anywhere. It's only getting more prevalent every single day. Whether you're going to have a good outcome or you're going to have a bad outcome really depends upon you and how you prepare for that. If you have a plan going into it, more than likely you're going to be okay. You're going to be able to mitigate that risk. If you don't have a plan, if your users aren't prepared for it, you're not working with another company, an IT company or security company to help protect you or to keep you secure, you're going to be a victim.